Welcome to a new episode of Single Chain Stories, a podcast for musicians, artists, and creators. My name is Miles Kundra, and I'm co-hosting the podcast with the wonderful Mordio. But today we are actually not alone because we have a guest. With us is Alex, also goes by the artist name of Amiva, a wonderful ambient artist. So the first words go to you, Alex. How are you? How do you feel? And from where are you calling us, actually?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me here. I'm calling you from Spain, somewhere in the mountains. So sorry if these things get some stuttering every now and then. The connection is not awesome, but we're trying our best.
Okay, cool. What brought you to the Spanish mountains as an artist? Is it the landscape
Um,
in?
yes, a bit of everything. I mean, first it's my home country. Um, but I used to live in a little town, and I think this time going to the mountains was a little bit a reaction after almost 5 years in Berlin, which was for me a huge, a huge city, a lot of yeah movement and noise and people that I'm not really used to it.
Mhm.
And I think my body just asked me for a little bit of completely the opposite, uh, and isolate myself in nature, lowering the volume, learning how to listen, I guess. Yeah, just finding some peace.
That makes sense as an ambient artist. I can definitely
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex and
Cool.
me, we actually met in Berlin as a
Mm.
good old long friend. I think over
Mm.
6 years now, even
Wow.
more. I don't know. I didn't count
I
properly.
guess I guess five,
5
because I moved in Berlin 5 years ago, and I met you right
in the
in
beginning,
my
right?
first month. Yeah.
Yeah, he was producing actually some techno releases on which label was it again?
Lawless, the
Lawless.
Paris deep
Yes.
techno.
And because of that, he was connected with Polygonia, what is a good friend of mine, and she was on like a gig in the Alte Griesmühle. And
Oh,
he was there, and then Lini was starting to play, and we was left alone on the dance floor. So we start talking, and we
yeah.
clicked. We clicked right well.
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome
6 years
people,
of
I'd say.
friendship
Yeah, no,
definitely proves
absolutely.
that.
Great guy, I have to
Yes.
say. So I invited you today because Miles here is a person that uses a lot of electron devices. I know
Hmm.
you use electron devices in a really
Nice.
unique way, and I wanted to know what happened if I put you both in one podcast. Just
That
that
is
we
a very
have that
great idea.
overview.
That's
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I
love
think this
that.
is the topic, yeah, we talk about today because we all three, I think all three of us have the Elektron Digitakt, the Mark One still. We know there's a Mark Two version out there by now, but still, yeah, the idea is basically to chat about different workflows and how you can approach this wonderful machine. For all of you listening, we know we have a lot of listeners who are not so deep into their music journey yet. The Elektron Digitakt, I think it was released in 2016, the first one.
Wow.
And you could really call it by now, I think it's a really iconic sampler and drum machine.
Yes.
So it has 8 audio tracks, 8 MIDI tracks, at least the Mark 1. The Mark 2 has, I think, 16 audio tracks, and you can switch them out with MIDI tracks. But yeah, it's a really iconic sampler. It has the Elektron workflow, which is which got very famous because the sequencing and all they do, the different effects that you can have different parameters per step in your sequencer, opens up a whole new world of creativity that you can bring into your machines. And I know a lot of artists out there are using it. If you're not familiar with the device, definitely check it out. It is fantastic. And as it is so iconic already, we decided to make a whole episode about it and hear more how different you can actually use it. So yeah, Modio already mentioned it, Alex. You're using the Digitakt in a very special way. Can you maybe explain what kind of like your general idea or creative workflow is behind how you play the Digitakt?
Sure. Sure. Um, the Digitakt is market, at least in the screen says 8 voice digital drum computer and sampler, and we have these 8 tracks that are named after kick, snare, whatever.
Yeah, it's absolutely a drum machine. They want to have that.
Yeah, and I think they missed a chance to explain better what this machine is, because in the end it's a sampler. At its core, it's very designed in a way that serves the drum machine. But I think because of as we mentioned in the beginning, I some years ago I was more into techno and dance floor stuff. But at some point I started shifting to ambient, and during that transition, I had a lot of electron gear that was focused. Like I had the rhythm instead of a Digitakt, and my plan was to use that as a drum machine. But as I found myself switching to ambient, then I was I was left with a drum machine that I was like, fuck, I have this drum machine that I don't want to use because I don't do drums anymore. So I start exploring some ways to actually use it more on the sampling side and trying to use whatever I had to do atmospheres. And I actually managed to find a really cool way to make some pseudo tape looping on the analog rhythm, which there's a video actually on my YouTube channel from some years ago.
You filmed that in my room, right?
Yes, actually, I filmed that in your room with your camera.
Awesome.
It's definitely the video that has the best quality over there. And yeah, just like this challenge to use a tool that it's maybe not made for something. I think that kind of forces creativity to find another way to make connections and probably get some end results that are unique to that process. Because I don't know, in the case of the analog rhythm, I had this awesome analog filters per track. I had the analog master distortion. I had LFO, so everything was like kind of like, I program a lot with the LFO, so everything was moving in a very analog color because of the distortions and the filters. And I was just literally just tape looping very melodic or atmospheric samples. And I just had this orchestra of like generative ambient going on. And then I had this, you know, we have all these gas moments where we are like triggered to buy something. I had the opposite. I had the anti-gas. I sold everything in order to reduce and focus only on less. So, for example, I switched my Octatrack and my analog rhythm for a Digitakt because the Digitone was actually my first Elektron, and it's the one that I had the most fun. I just think the design of this Digibox, it's super fun and really ready to make music, rather than the Octatrack, for example, which is so big that you need a lot of setup and a lot of clear decisions of what you want to do, so you find a way to do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because my first outboard synth was also the Elektron Digitone, and I just love it. I think it's still one of my favorites, and you can still see it here a little bit in the background. I think it's there under the hood.
Behind the huge Moog.
Yeah, behind the huge Moog. But yeah, I still have it on my desk continuously because I think it is fantastic for so many different things.
Up.
Opa.
You can.
Yeah, sorry, the camera switches off and on.
Love your setup, mate.
First time.
Easy. Yeah, but what was interesting for me when I saw you doing it, because I was like, yo, you're taking a drum machine and making ambient. So what the first thing you did different kind of was that you don't use 909s and put them inside as samples. You literally said, okay, let me put this like field recordings inside and pitch them down or something like this, right? Like I think this workflow explanation would be really interesting, because I have this thing there. I'm using it as a drum machine for my 909s to, putting it together with the Eurorack system, right? Because a lot of people want from my side a lot of Eurorack stuff, right? And I'm using it just to have like drums that come through the mix easy with samples. And then I can filter the 909 so it don't sounds like a classic 909 all the time.
Yeah.
But I also try to do some ambient with it. And what I really like is how simple it is as a sampler. It's just really nice when you just use field recordings or pads or nice full ambient tracks and you put them in and just pitch it down, put reverb on top and use it more like I have a trigger, I have like random noise that I put in and then just scramble this stuff up. And you was like, for me, always the master of that because you find a really nice balance to use this little drum machine sampler to really make a full ambient track only with that Digitakt. Like I just added, we have to mention me and Alex, we was playing a lot of Live X together and totally in the ambient area. And I just added with the modular a little bit of like FX sounds, weird creatures, but the bass, drone, ambient, that it's actually a full track, that was always Alex.
Nice. Good stuff. But yeah, how do you achieve that? Is it then just on the samples or do you utilize specific features on the Digitakt itself?
I think it's both. There's definitely a lot of work and importance on sampling. As Flo said, I have a lot of field recordings. I have piano loops, either sampled from songs or I do a little piano recording session and then I export the best motifs and I just put them on my Digitakt. There's a lot of trial and error with sampling from tracks. Like one of my favorite games, let's say, is going to NTS, randomly select a podcast and start like scrolling over the tracks, and if there's something I like, I just sample it into the Digitakt.
I love it.
So I have like from real already drony ambient samples to very weird traditional folkloric music or orchestral or winds, any kind of melodic atmospheric sound. And as Flo said earlier, when you start playing with pitching down, effects, filtering, and everything happens in real time, it's super fun to find a completely new territory far away from the original sample. So sampling definitely very important. But then there's also a certain workflow on the Digitakt that allows me this self-generative kind of sessions, which is I don't use the sequencer at all. I stay always in the same pattern, and the sequencer is a stop. The Digitakt is not playing. But what I do is I use the triggers of all the 8 tracks with the decay on infinite. So when I press 1, I just press once, and the whole thing it's endlessly looping.
Okay.
And from there I start crafting. I fade in, fade out, filters, pitching up, pitching down.
Okay, I got it. So that is
Yeah.
insane. So I think I've never heard of
get
that
that.
workflow before.
I never
Okay.
get that part.
So it's basically you manually sit there and then trigger the 8 different tracks that you have. Obviously, you
Exactly.
know what's on the tracks, and then when you have triggered it, you start to mangle the sound and then trigger other sounds and bring them in as well,
Exactly.
right? So it's kind of like a live performance as well.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that is cool.
Yeah, that
really
is
nice.
cool, right? I remember because when we played live, I don't know what he's doing with the machine, right? I just saw him with the hand, like putting stuff in, like you literally see him playing this thing like an instrument. And I was always like, yeah, this dude have a different workflow with this machine. I never saw this. And now
that
I
is
get
insane.
why.
Yeah.
You don't use the sequencer at all, where everyone is
Not at
hyping
all.
on the sequencer. You're just like,
Yeah, I know.
Same as me in the intro saying how amazing the sequencer is, and you're coming in. Well, you know what? I'm not using the sequencer at all.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's awesome.
This is so
I
you.
do use the sequencer a lot when I'm composing. when I try to chop a sample in a very crazy way. In that occasion, the sampler is awesome. But as you said, when I'm performing live, which is actually why I got the machine, and it's the way I like to use it the most, is to just sit down on one pattern, Digitakt is top, and just like committing to a sound. Of course, it will be cool sometimes, I think, that you could have like a cue listen before fading in, like the analog rhythm had, for example. But it's also, it's quite a cool challenge to set up something randomly, fade in slowly, see what's going on, and commit to that somehow. And if you don't like it, just try to fade it out with a little bit of touch.
Yeah, with a
but
musical
normally it's very rewarding. I would say 80% of the times something works.
So I want to learn that for real now. So I need that clear again. The patterns are the kind of safe spots, right? The presets that you kind of build, and then you can switch between, and they go like in Ableton. When you make a new clip, on the next one, they go in, right? That's the patterns. So you use just one pattern. I love this idea because I actually also want to play like just live, changing the pattern and not going to the next pattern. So it's a full new track. That's cool for techno tracks, maybe if you change the samples. But if I just want to stay with one 909 and just change that or something, that would be the way to go. So now with this ambient part, so you have the decay 100%, and it then stays infinity with that.
Exactly.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's really important to know. So you just trigger in the keynote, like in the mode where you can play it like a little keyboard, right?
No, not really. I'm all the time on the regular mode where I can trick
just trigger
all the 8 tracks.
Okay, yeah.
So you don't use the keyboard mode at all, where you can play the samples chromatically?
Not really. No.
Okay.
Because it's it's monophonic, so I find it quite difficult to, or at least I don't have the confidence to open up the keyboard mode and start like, let's say, playing. I'm more into one track, one element that stays continuously on that key, unless I decide to pitch up or down through the sample menu.
Interesting.
Cool.
But yeah, I just trigger once the tracks, and with the decay set up on infinity, it just gives me this constant note that never stops.
This is so cool.
That's great.
And then you have this key that you know because you can see it in the pitch, right? That you add, and then you say
not really, because every sample has a different key.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the Digitakt only, it's really cool that the Digitakt has like this really micro tuning, that it's not like semitones like on Ableton, for example. You can really like fine tune everything. That for me was key. Like if this wouldn't be like that, I would probably don't keep the Digitakt with me.
Yeah, because what you didn't mention,
for me essential.
Yeah, because you didn't mention that normally you do a drone with the Digitakt that have one key, and then now I know by ear you play notes on top.
Yes.
Because then you use the Digitone, or like your big synth that you have now, the Osmos, was it that?
Yeah, the Osmos.
Yeah, you're using the Osmos and playing with that then on the piano live and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't mention that for now, so wanted to make that clear. So then you have the Digitakt more like a drone texture device, and then you have other devices for making like melodic stuff.
Exactly. Right now it's only the Osmos, because unfortunately I lost my Digitone.
Yeah, I know.
Where did it go?
Ask DHL.
When he moved to Spain,
I would love.
When he moved to Spain, he bring all the equipment from Berlin to Spain, and the package went lost.
Oh,
yeah.
Lost.
Quote marks, lost.
Quote marks, lost.
Dude.
Oh man, sorry to hear. That must be a nightmare.
Yeah, the speakers, the mixer, there was so much equipment going on. Just by.
Okay.
Yeah, that was super
it's
sad.
definitely the saddest is the Digiton. As I said, was my first Elektron, and I had lots of love for that machine, but hopefully it's gonna come back sooner than later.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, coming back to the Digitakt, do you then also on the samples? How do you then work with them? I assume it's quite long samples, as you mentioned. And do you also use the internal effects? I mean, the Digitakt doesn't have that many, but I feel that already with the reverb and with the delay, you can already do lots of different stuff.
Yes.
Do you use that?
Yes, definitely. On the, let's say on the sample page, one of the key setups for this workflow that I'm proposing also is the machines. If I'm sure you remember well the 4 different machines that now you can select on the Digitakt is something quite new. Like it was, I think, the last update Mark 1 got.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you can choose from one-shot, warp mode, repitch mode, or slice mode.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you should update your Digitakt, Florian, because there's the last update actually for the Mark 1 was pretty sick because they added, I think, 3 new machines because before I think it was only the one-shot mode. Yeah, one-shot mode. And now they added 3 different machines, the one that Alex just mentioned, and they are pretty amazing to do all sorts of different stuff with your samples. Like
I never
it's a little bit
my stuff.
Yeah, you should definitely in this case do it because it still runs stable and the new opportunities are amazing. It's a little bit like the different sample and warp functions that Ableton Live has, just inside the machine, both kind of like mangled together. It's really nice and it opens new possibilities for the workflow.
I see. So it plays it a little bit different back. This is what it's doing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Alex, you showed me once, I remember that when we did like the live jams on my channel, you showed me once this kind of granular way to do it. You almost use it like a granular synth. Can you explain that a little bit? That's really interesting for me.
That's why I was mentioning these machines because one of my goals with forcing these Elektron machines into Ambient was to kind of have like a pseudo granular way to process the samples. And there's actually that was even before the 3 new machines. When we only had one shot, there was a guy on YouTube that sadly I don't remember the name, but he showed a way to pseudo granular with the Digitakt using the LFOs and the like patch to the starting point of the sample, and you got like a really crazy effect. But then Elektron add these modes, and with the slice mode, I found a very cool way to achieve this sort of effect because the slice mode allows you to cut the sample up to 64 different slices, which are, you know, if the sample is not super long, which in any case it is because the Digitakt only allows you 30 seconds, I think. But let's say you have a 5-second sample and you use the 64 slices. Each slice is very tiny. It's like a grain almost.
Yeah, it's like a short grain size.
So what I do is always I use the 64 slices, and then you can select how many slices are you using from the starting point that you choose. So let's say I use like these 3 slices. They are constantly looping, and the effect is already very like grainy and drony. Nice. But then going back to Miles' question about the effects, there's reverb and delay, which will add a lot of ambient-ish on it. But I found an even better way to use that is on the Digitakt. You can go to the audio routing because every track is going, let's say, dry to the master, and the effects is send effects.
Wait a sec. Your internet is glitching.
Oh, sorry.
Easy.
Should I repeat?
I think it's back, yeah. It was just so important that I wanted it clean.
So each track goes dry to the master, and the effects is the sand effects. But there's a way to disable that every track goes to the master. And then you only hear the track through the reverb, not the dry sound of the track.
So you have the wet
Okay.
dry and completely
So
on wet.
exactly.
That's
So
the
suddenly you
ambient.
have this completely wet sound, which being already like granular kind of thing, and then skipping the master goes through the delay. You just add these like more grains because it's a delay,
Yeah.
and then you can send the delay to the reverb. So then that creates like this clouds effect, like the kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's very cool because then you can suddenly the delay and the reverb becomes this awesome part of the sound design, the final sculpting of the sound.
Yeah, and also because you
Not
have
not only
everything.
because
Because you have everything in the reverb, right? And in the delay, everything you do before that can be also more rough. Like you can pitch stuff and change things. Even if you get clicks,
Exactly.
they are kind of nice textures then, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, that makes this machine absolutely to ambient machine.
does.
I'm saving money for an S4 from Torso, right? And now
Yeah.
you're telling me this, and I have it here, sitting there, just chilling.
Totally.
Okay, that's super interesting.
Yeah, and then when you have like this, let's say, flow of delay on and the end of the sound, every change you do on the filters, on the beat reduction, on the sample rate, it really adds a lot of possibilities to slowly move the sound.
This is so fucking cool. Wow. I mean, I would say from you both, I'm the person that used the Digitakt in the normal classic way because I really just on and off having this relationship with this device. I having it like for over a year now, but I always putting it just on the side to clock my stuff, or I don't know, like Eurek to clock Eurek. Sometimes it's nice to have like some button that just play a trigger.
Yeah, but to be honest, I use it in a pretty much same way. Like the last time I used it was actually when I was at a friend's studio. He's also a composer and musician, and he has more kind of like a traditional musician background. So he's a keyboard player and he knows keyboard playing very well. And we kind of like decided that we wanted to jam, and we basically agreed that he takes over the melodic part and I take over the percussion part. And this is why I just took the Digitakt to his studio. And I was again amazed by this machine, how quickly you can get a beat going and how quickly you can also then using the performance effects. And also I think one of my favorite features is the function yes, function no, where you can just mess up all your settings. And once you click function no, it jumps back to your last safe spot, so to say. And you can use that in a performance way just to completely funk up all of your pattern. I also used just one pattern to stay on that. And then we started to jam. And then I brought in a lot of delay. For example, I increased the feedback on the delay to make everything get louder and louder. And then I just hit funk no. And then, we got back to a safe state. So we could, in the moment, really nicely play together because then he also increased his keyboard playing and his synth playing that he did. And there was a very, very dynamic way of making music. So, I think for that, it's also a fantastic device.
That's also cool. Thanks. Like I love how everyone shares its workflow. Like for me, what I love the most on the Digitakt, what I figured out on my last jam that I recorded for YouTube, was like that you can hold one pattern and just change the filter there or something, and then on a different side you make the filter up or low. So the maybe 4-bar loop that you have sounds like it's way longer, like with polyrhythmic or something, because you trick the mind because you constantly have different trigger that makes the sound playing back a little bit lower in the pitch. The other one have the filter more open. The other one gets a delay, the rest not. So it's starting to become really fast, really complex triggers that making like for each step a different and really interesting outcome. And
Yeah,
I have to
exactly.
say, you can do this really easy on the go. Like, I'm not really having any muscle memory for this machine, but I did it live in the video. I just jam around and it was easy actually working.
Yeah, I think it invites you to do trial and error a lot, which
Yes.
is
Yeah.
something a lot of people appreciate about this machine because, yeah, you can just try stuff, and if it doesn't work, you press function no, and you get back to a safe state, kind of like reloading your pattern within a second from where you know it sounded great, and then you can just go again and try some new stuff. I really like this functionality. I would really like that some more devices would have that because I think it really encourages you to explore stuff. Because when I do that in Ableton, I mean, yes, now Ableton has this undo history, but still,
same,
it's something where you can just save kind of like a patch that you have and then just keep going completely crazy. And then you said, okay, I fucked it up now. I need to go back. I think this is something really great, and what I really like about the Elektron boxes.
That's so cool. How you do that? Like you hold the function button.
Yeah, so it's like the Elektron has two different knobs, or two different buttons. One is called yes, and one is called no. I think you use them also in the menu. It's just like
there's yes and no.
It's just yes and no. And if you like jam on your pattern and you hit function and yes, it creates kind of like a temporary safe spot, so to say. So something where you can fall back to whenever you hit function no. So then whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. You can go to the filter, open the filter. You can go bring up the delay feedback on all of your tracks, basically everything, and just go really crazy. And the moment you hit function no, it just jumps back to this safe spot, but doesn't cut off the audio, but still the tails, like from the delay and stuff, it's still fading out very nicely. So you can use it in a really cool performance
Build up,
way. Basically,
you can make
a
lot of noise, building up
Absolutely.
tension, and then just cut it into a nice kick or something. That's
100%.
super cool. That's really
100%.
workflow. I think, Alex, you showed me this already 2 times, and I every time forgetting it. I'm every time like, oh, wow. But now I have it like, okay, function, yes, scramble the shit
no
up,
to
jump, and then back to no, and back to my normal, perfect, precise. I don't want to fuck it up. Yeah, that's true. Because sometimes you're on different devices, right? And you feel like you find a sweet spot. You don't want to touch the device anymore. Like with the Eurorack system, you have that a lot of times, you know. You're putting a cable out before you touch the knobs, you know. Because when you put the cable in, it's back. But if you touch the knob, maybe you don't find the same sweet spot.
Yeah, it's gone. And then another thing to fuck it up even more, there's another really cool functionality. If you hold down the MIDI button and then turn any knob, for example, the filter, it turns up the filter on all tracks that you have. So not only on the track that you're currently working on, but on all 8 audio tracks. And if you do that, for example, also for the delay, you can add delay to all of your audio tracks or reverb, and this way completely mess up your signal. Like also bring up the decay 100%, bring up the attack 100%, reverse the samples, like, and everything is suddenly reversed. And then it can create some really fun stuff. But the cool thing is the moment you press function no, it jumps back to your regular pattern. So you can actually try out some really cool stuff, and just keep going with that. And I think that's just really nice.
Wow.
Oh, Alex, I see your battery of your camera is blinking.
Oh my God.
So,
welcome to the Tech
but I think
Podcast Live.
Welcome, where we fix tech issues directly in the episode.
Yeah, that's the classic.
Yeah,
Here we are.
yeah, but maybe this is
This is webcam quality.
yeah, but maybe this is a sign to maybe wrap up this episode. Or is there anything else you guys wanted to share about the Digitakt? Maybe everyone, just very quickly in a quick round. What is your favorite feature on the Elektron Digitakt? Alex, you go first.
Oof. My favorite feature, the probability.
Yes.
Something we haven't even touched. Very good.
yeah.
Yes, that was actually one of my main keys to sell the rhythm for the Digitakt. On the rhythm, you cannot, let's say, pass the fingers to all the triggers and then turn a knob to say probability 50, and then you have this generative pattern already going on, which these machines does.
Really? They don't have it in the 2,000 euro version, but on that little boy, they have it?
Yeah, bro.
It's
When I
crazy.
first got it, I was like,
Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, wow, that's crazy. Okay, Then I would say, because I know this probability makes it to a generative thing, and because in my case it's more like in the techno view, like I mentioned before, I would say it's that you for each step can decide options. So like if you have 5 kicks till it loops again, each kick can be completely different, and from filter, from effects, from everything, just by holding that one trigger that you sent and then changing things. And I really like that workflow. I think this is really good for playing live, because normally live devices, you set them and then you make them on off with mutes or whatever, but you're not really changing the system again. You kind of build it before. This machine invites you to literally jam on the go.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. And you can also load per step different samples, which I always find crazy. You have these 128 sample slots that you can put in your sample pool. And then let's say you have a 64 step sequencer going, and for all 64 steps you could have a different pattern, a different sample playing, which always blows my mind, because this shows how just in one track, by the way, you can do that for the other 7 tracks as well. So this is crazy.
So we know now how to make proper drones with that thing. We have different samples for each step. For each step we have different filter, and then we have the probability. That's a generative masterpiece. Actually, you can make really generative music with that thing then.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, when I just used the Digitone, because the Digitone only has 4 tracks, so quite limited. But actually there are some workarounds how you can, for example, bring all your drums to one track just using that method. So for example, you have a sound pool where you save some of your sound presets, and then you can, in the sequencer, just put the kicks as 4 on the floor, then the snares, if you want to have them play on the 2 and on the 4, for example, then you just put it one step besides the kick drum and then nudge it all the way to the other, kind of like so then they play on top of each other on the same track, which is crazy. And all of that stuff you can just do. And I made complete tracks just using the Digitone with 4 tracks.
With 4 tracks.
But you can do that if you get creative with the sequencer. I think this is just insane.
One thing I think we have to mention, this thing is like a little Game Boy you can put in any backpack.
Yeah.
This is like the main thing why I think we all love it, right? It's so
form factor
small.
Is so small.
It brings you away from the computer a lot of times, and just jam a little bit with that thing can make a full track. When you say that so many times, I'm like, yeah, that's why we all have it, right?
Yeah. And the buttons, man. The feel of these buttons.
It feels like a Game Boy.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's very pleasing to work with that. That's
okay,
true.
Miles, what's your favorite?
I think my favorite, I already mentioned the function yes, function no one, but to bring that to the next level, something I really used a lot when I used to perform with the Elektron Digitakt and Digitone was the delay and the delay feedback. So you can, when you have delay on your tracks, you can just, because the delay is a send effect, so you can bring up the global feedback of your delay, and this way you have this rising noise in your whole pattern, which you have to be careful about, because we all know delay feedbacks can get very, very dangerous. But there is, I think Elektron made it in a very smart way, because if you make the feedback halfway up, you're still kind of like in a safe spot. The volume rises constantly, but still it takes very long until it gets
so there's like there's a huge range where it's safe.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Where you're kind of like safe. And this is what I utilized a lot when playing live. And then I brought it up and up and up. And then I maybe switched the pattern, and then I hit function no, and then the feedback went back down, and I was kind of like in the next pattern. So if you combine that with taking out your kick drum, muting your kick, and then just bring it up, bring back in your kick, hit function no, you kind of like can make in a transition within the same pattern, which is just pretty insane. So
that's nice,
all of that stuff makes, for me,
cool.
the Digitakt and Digitone super cool performance devices.
Yeah, they're performance devices, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool.
Good stuff. Yeah. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Your artist name, again, to mention for everyone, is Amiva. So people can find you on streaming platforms, YouTube, everywhere?
Yes, definitely on YouTube. My website is online finally as well. There should be the main hub of everything. There's my Bandcamp, my SoundCloud, my jams with Flow, Alone, my records, everything is there. Amiva.site.
Awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, the .com was like 2K to buy the domain. I was like, nope, ain't gonna happen.
Okay, so we send some traffic to your website, and definitely to everyone who listens from my YouTube channel, please give this guy some followers on his YouTube channel. There's coming a lot of good stuff.
From my YouTube channel
Yes.
as well. Can recommend. You heard about the great workflow, and I can't wait to see what more you do with it. Thank you so much for joining us, and sending lots of love and good vibes to the Spanish mountains. I hope the Digitone comes back to your studio.
Absolutely.
And
I hope so.
for everyone listening to our podcast, thank you so much again for tuning in. If there are other guests that you would like to see on this episode, just let us know, because we could ask, and maybe they would love to join us as well. And for now, I'll just leave everyone with a great day, and looking forward already to the next episode.
See you all on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.